Tonight we have Dr. Tamanna Khosla talking about feminist ethics and foreign policy. Tamanna, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to the audience, and if you would like to take it away, please do.
Sure. Thank you so much. So today what we are going to talk about is feminist foreign policy, which is FFP. FFP is something which was asked by feminists long back, and it took a lot of decades for feminists to convince the governments that, what we need is a foreign policy which is based on feminism. So in 2014, Sweden became the first state ever to introduce feminist foreign policy in their foreign policy, and with a stated ambition to become the strongest voice for gender equality and full employment of human rights for women and girls. In Canada, similarly, the Liberal government of Justin Trudeau has followed this lead, announcing a feminist international assistance policy in 2017. So, as a result, there has been a spark of academic interest in feminist foreign policy worldwide. Prior to 2015, there was certainly significant critical feminist work in field of international relations, specifically addressing gender in foreign policy from feminist perspective. Responding to developments of the world, that scholars have become increasingly interested in analyzing of the meaning and implication of foreign policy that is exclusively feminist in nature. So yeah, so it was Canada, Sweden, and Germany now. In the author argues, one of the authors called Razamond argues that inherent in the idea of feminist foreign policy is a normative reorientation that is guided by ethically informed framework based on broad cosmopolitan norms of global justice and peace. So what they are seeking is at its global justice and peace is something which is must, and if women are not included at the topmost level where foreign policies are made, where diplomats are there, no more chances of gender equality is possible. So I argue that liberal cosmopolitan person reproduces existing relations of power, including gender power relations and Western liberal modes of domination. While this cosmopolitanism is consonant with the ethical discourse that underwrites and constitutes existing foreign policy, it will serve ultimately to undercut rather than facilitate feminist goals. So yeah, so now let's just understand a bit, what is sexism in international relations. So French psychoanalysts have highly been skeptical of attribution of a negative value to women in language and especially in foreign relations. That is, they talk about how women get incorporated into symbolic order where binaries are constructed. One term, example, man, mind, reason is man, while women, body, passion is women. So this affects the foreign policy very much because, women are not taken to be ones who are rational, and they are the ones who are and mindless. So what they need now, as far as foreign policy is concerned, is that they need to be considered as, there are two things to it. One is we can understand them to be similar in every way. That means they have mind, reason, and man, that kind of thing. Or secondly, we could look at them as some people who have different voices. So Gilligan, for example, talked about in a different voice, in a book. So we need to understand that women might have different voice, they might have different concerns, and that is what is most important for us to understand, that they can be different. So while we can have an androgynous system, but also the fact is that women have a different voice, they probably might contribute in a much better way to mode of thinking of international relations, and they would be able to, now there are again, there are two kind of things. One could be voice of women who are looking for peace. There are another, for example, the EU, the president right now, Usher, whatever. So she, what are they doing? What is their contribution? They are, they are like encouraging war. So, like there can be two kind of people. So it's not essential that if it's a woman, she surely will be, she'll encourage non-war or peace. So, and there can be men who would be wanting a non-nuclear solution to problems. So we do not need to say that, women can do, women are always for peace and men are always not for peace. So both of them can be, it depends on the person to person. So I will not leave my androgynous model for this particular aspect, and that men and women together can contribute towards a different voice, which is more, which is empathetic to uh, uh, animals, which is empathetic to human beings as such, and and climate, for example, and they are basically empathetic. So such a system is referred to as phallocentric, and French feminist strategies of writing seek to disrupt this symbolic order. In line with this critique, Helena Sixou, in her article Castration or Decapitation, aims a blow at phallocentric culture, where it hurts the most and attacks it for marking women as the other and as negativity. So women are not the other, they are the same. She says no to the fathers, reminding them of the very thing they have most to fear, the threat of castration posed by female body. She questions the repression of feminine in culture and provocatively questions masculine language. Women text is a return of repressed feminine, that with its energetic, joyful, and transgressive flying in language and making it fly. Luke Irigere shares with Sixou as the promise of femininity in the materiality of writing. So yeah, so most commonly, notion of difference is used to denote the real differences between women and men, whether the difference is attributed to biological, psychological, or social issues. Many theorists theorize more about putatively unitary, primary, culturally universal type of activity associated with women. One of the most prominent among them was Nancy Chodorow, sets herself to explain the internal psychological dynamics which have led women willingly to reproduce social divisions associated with female inferiority. So women are not inferior in any possible way. And that is the thing, it has to happen worldwide. This has to be recognized. Now, if, for example, in Iran, for example, let me just give the example of Iran. Women were, they cut their hair and, like, because they did not want to wear the hijab, etc. And but the other countries were taking advantage of it. So obviously, rather than being better for women, they were doing worse. Americans, etc. The way they were portraying the whole situation. So they did not let it to be resolved internally. It had to be resolved internally, and the help had to come in, but not in a way that it critiques the Iranian government. It is critical, obviously, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say is that when it comes from outside, from Western powers, they look at it as Islamophobia. So they would not. Afghanistan, for example, women are not allowed to work, women are not allowed to drive, women are not allowed to go to schools, colleges, etc., etc. So till the time these kind of things, it does not become fashionable for women to come out and work, and in third world countries especially, till the time that doesn't happen, it would be extremely problematic for women, that like they are not able to participate at all in uh, the they're not able to participate in foreign policy issues. So Catherine McKinnon sets out to explain that oppression of women occurs through sexual subordination. Thus, like Shulamit Firestone, she appeals to the idea of women as class whose sexuality, like proletariat labor, is exploited. So now the Swedish government, what they wanted was in 2016 they set up the fact that and these are the important issues which one needs to focus on. Firstly, to strengthen women and girls' human rights in humanitarian situations. Secondly, to fight and prevent gender-based and sexual violence against women and girls in conflict and post-conflict situations, which happens majorly. You know, women are raped, wars, etc. You know, like right now in Russia, Ukraine, for example, the war. You know, women and children suffer the most. Thirdly, to promote women's participation as actors in peace processes and peace promoting measures. Fourthly, to promote women and girls' participation in work for economic, social, environmental, and sustainable development. Fifthly, to strengthen women and girls' economic independence and their access to economic resources, including through productive work under decent living conditions. Sixthly, to strengthen sexual and reproductive rights for women and young people. So these were the six points which were included by Wallstone. And Wallstone is known as one of the harbingers of this particular aspect from Sweden. These goals were reiterated in new handbook, Sweden's feminist foreign policy. The handbook also outlines methods for norm change and mobilization, as well as working methods within subsidiary areas of foreign policy, including peace and security, disarmament and non-proliferation, international development, and trade. But we cannot, what I'm trying to say is that, you know, we can't say that women obviously have a stake in having peace. You know, they have their children, you know, their whole family, they want non-proliferation, obviously. But it doesn't mean that all women are wanting that, or all men are wanting nuclear proliferations. So, but it is a fact that women mostly favor non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. So yeah. So Sweden's foreign policy is framed as a natural extension of the work of a feminist government and a continuation of many years of national gender equality policy. So yeah, the general approach emphasizes gender equality and human rights. The handbook states explicitly that those countries that have made reservations infringing women's and girls' rights should repeal these, and they contravene the purpose and intention of convention, and that religion, culture, custom, or tradition can never legitimize infringement of women's and girls' human rights. So what they are trying to say is multiculturalism is no reason, and I quote Susan Moller-Rokin again and again, religion, culture, and custom are no reason for women to be suppressed by any country. So if a country from the top cannot help, then people from down, people from the lower level, the NGOs, civil society needs to pressurize such governments which are like oppressing women and children, and and to stop wars which are existing in the world right now. There should be a major pressure for Russia and Ukraine to stop the war, and because it's like harming people amazingly. So feminist foreign policy or feminist diplomacy is a concept that calls for a state to promote values and good practices to achieve gender equality and to guarantee all women enjoy human rights and diplomatic relations. Then in their coalition agreement 2021-2025, the parties that form the current German government agreed to pursue a feminist foreign policy, FFP. The German Foreign Office is now committed to do so, while Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development seeks to pursue a feminist development policy. FFP will also be a discussion topic in Germany's first national security strategy. Isn't that amazing? Germany is thus following a trend as ever more government committed to FFP, or at least seek to realize certain elements. Yet what FFP approach actually means in theory and practice remains vague and contentious. So it needs to be developed much more. what precondition it requires is in what context it applies and what implication it involves. So a succession of states in various regions have instituted FFP, and the first was, as we discussed, Sweden, then Canada, then France, then Luxembourg, Mexico, Spain, Libya. Germany followed suit in 2021. So we are like around 6-7 states in the world which are pursuing this particular policy. So we need to have a growing gender awareness at the international level. Although FFP is comparatively recent phenomena, it can also be a result. It can also be seen as a result of growing awareness of gender in international relations. The genealogical review reveals a steady expansion of gender focus. It began in development policy and spread first to the fields of human rights and conflict and security. Now, gender awareness has arrived in foreign policy itself. So the origin lies in 3 world conferences on women held during UN Decade for Women. First was held in Mexico City, 1975, Copenhagen, 1980, Nairobi, 1985. In 79, the UN General Assembly adopted the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. The convention came into effect in 1981, with Germany ratifying in 1835. Gender equality also finds its place in the Millennium Development Goals and their successors. So, gender sensitivity has also grown within the institution of EU. In 2015, the Council of European Union underlined the importance of initiatives to promote women's and girls' rights, gender equality, and empowerment of women and girls in development policy. So, whether FFP is seen as a recent phenomenon or the outcome of a process going back decades, it certainly represents a new branding. For the first time, a specific policy area has been officially designated by government as feminist. Foreign policy is a field where structures are particularly strongly male-dominated and therefore privileges the perspectives, ideas, and experiences of men. A gender-neutral foreign policy consequently produces gender inequality. So you do not need to have a gender-neutral foreign policy. We can have differences which can be accommodated. Women have different life cycles, different way of looking at things, and that has to be incorporated in foreign policy. And till the time that doesn't happen, having a goal of a gender-neutral policy is of no sense to me particularly, because women have specific needs which have to be fulfilled, and there are both normative and pragmatic arguments for gender equality. On the one hand, goal of gender equality can be intrinsically justified as a value of its own right. In this sense, it can be seen as a matter of human rights and anti-discrimination. On the other, research into the effect of gender equality generates extensive argument for equal participation for women. So, for example, you have seen Nordic countries are pretty good in human rights index, but as far as South Asia is concerned, or Africa is concerned, these kind of things are not still there, and foreign policy is still the domain largely of men, and that is what is extremely difficult for women, because if women were to head these institutions, chances of a different answer to the problem of violence, of terrorism, etc., might just come in. For example, the tension between Pakistan and India, it could be resolved if women to women talk was there. And so I guess I'm sure that it would be a much better option if women come together and have talks together, and they see that how their children can flourish in a world which is violence free. So this has been pioneered by Sweden. Sweden has been the oldest and the most comprehensive FFP concept. It is regarded as a model and pioneer in an example of phenomenon discussion in international relation. Sweden's officially inaugurated itself in 2014 FFP, and yeah. So, so there were 3 R's which the handbook of Sweden focused on. First was rights, promoting all women and girls full enjoyment of human rights, representation, and resources. So these 3 things have to be provided to women. So an ethical feminist government, for example, Canada, have been outspoken critics of unethical or barbaric acts of other states to condemn, criticize, or rebuke any policy or regime that appears to contradict their own commitment to justice and human rights. This emerged clearly in diplomatic crisis with Saudi Arabia faced by Sweden in 2015, and more recently with Canada in 2018. So on 11th February 2015, Wallström, speaking from Swedish Parliament, criticized Saudi Arabian human rights. Especially, she criticized the public flogging of the blogger Raif Badawi, and later described it as medieval. So Wallström, whose government recognized the state of Palestine in 2015, had been asked to deliver a speech at Arab League summit in Cairo in late March, but Saudi Arabia intervened and Wallström was disinvited. So culture is something which has to be taken care of, and till the time we don't understand that things don't come from top down, from down up. That is the major policy which has to be understood, that the structure of the whole parameter of violence can be resolved only when people raise their voices against that. The climate, for example, the climate issue, people from down towards up, they are forcing people, forcing the governments to take up climate savvy issues. So same with this particular issue, that women need to be included in foreign policies, and chances of their doing much better would be acceptable to most people, and chances of a different solution to a problem might just come up. So yeah, and so complicating these matters, in fact, is the fact that Sweden is one of the Europe's largest per capita income arms exporter. The day after Wallström was supposed to have appeared in Cairo, the government announced its decision not to renew a bilateral arms agreement with Saudi Arabia. Sweden, for example. This has been described as Wallström's feminist foreign policy in practice. Not surprisingly, the move did not sit well with Sweden's most powerful industrialists, who stood to lose significant income from break in relationship with Saudi Arabia. So, arms deals, etc., these are the whole problematic situations which people are facing. Men till now who have been ruling have been focusing on armed deals, etc., and human rights is something which has been set aside. So yeah, so I guess I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamanna. And tonight we have a panelist. His name is Shiva Thomas. He's going to be asking the questions. And if anyone else in the room has a question, please put it in the chat and I will make sure that it gets heard. And since I'm already talking, I'm just going to throw this out. Yes, I agree with you, Tamanna. Our voices do need to be heard, so that we can become more involved in really the structure of the system that is ruling us. And aside from empowering women and lifting them up and not standing in judgment of them, can you think of any other potential solutions just for boots on the ground, for people that don't have any control over the legislation or the laws?
I guess there needs to be, Cynthia, what we need to do is we need to have reservations, affirmative action. When we are putting our ministers on the at the top level, politicians, there should be reservations, for example, at the secretarial level, etc., where women need to be reserved, the seats for women need to be reserved as advisors to the prime minister's office, etc., where women can have their voice heard. And it's not just a voice, it's a much superior voice. Ethics of care is something which is um, it's extremely powerful notion, because after all, what are we doing to the world right now? Pollution, glaciers are melting, everything is going wrong. People are dying of earthquakes. So what are we trying to do? So foreign policy, for example, US was not helping Syria, for example, for tensions between the two countries. So so women's voice can be prominent in this particular regard.
Thank you very much, Tamanna. And I will hand it over to Shibu. Shibu, questions?
Yeah, I do have a question, Tamanna. So I completely agree with you that women, well, what you said earlier, that just because there's a traditional notion that women are more peaceful and that men are more, but that's not always true, like you said. But also, I just wanted to put this out there. Indira Gandhi was a very tough lady. She ruled India, right?
Iron Lady, yeah.
Benazir Bhutto, Pakistan's prime minister, female prime minister, tough lady. And now
Yeah.
Bangladesh has a female prime minister, Muslim country too, like Pakistan. Hasina Wazir. So these are very tough ladies that are acting more like men. Traditionally manly decisions are what they're trying to make. And they're doing it more ruthlessly than most men would do. Because Indira Gandhi actually declared an emergency in that country. So just because, like you said earlier, just because a woman is empowered doesn't mean that she's going to act like the traditional stereotype of what a woman is supposed to act like. In the US, we have a lot of female leadership, like Hillary Clinton, or now we got the Republican. In the Republican side, we have a Punjabi girl. What's her name? The governor of South Carolina. Yeah, she's running for president actually against Trump.
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley, yeah, Nikki Haley. So we got all these ladies who are not acting according to the stereotype of what the feminine leadership should look like. So how do you explain that? So if we do have these reservations, right? And we say, well, women should only be allowed for this spot. How are we to tell that they would be the kind of woman that you're expecting them to be?
See, the thing is, as far as the South Asian context is concerned, most of them were the family lineage, be it Bangladesh, be it Pakistan, be it India. These women came to power because of the family lineage. So I guess there is nothing like, this is what women are intrinsically wanting to do or they are not wanting to do. It depends on the person. It very much depends on the person. For example, the Canadian Prime Minister, he's such a feminist. He puts in everything, he puts in feminism. So I guess it's not all women do that. Women leaders are not the ones who are like, yeah. So they were not wanting to do all that. But there are men, for example, who are feminists. So we need to recognize that fact that, not all women are going to be feminists and not all men are not going to be feminists. So I guess that is the whole thing which we need to understand, because many women are extremely ferocious and, they don't understand they, even if they have children, everything, they're still barbaric in nature. So I guess till the time we don't understand that, we need to have a policy where feminism is taught at the parliamentary level to people, to the secretariat, for example, and foreign policy, which is specifically dealing with women issues. For example, women being raped in wars, etc., children being hurt majorly, for example, Ukraine and Russian war. So till the time we don't do that, nothing can really improve in this world right now. So the intrinsic power of women needs to be taught to everybody. be it women or men, both women and men need to be taught what really feminism is, and differences between men and women are there, but it doesn't mean that they're not similar in nature. So they are androgynous in nature for sure, but what we need to understand is that they do not have differences of they do have differences of opinion, but they are not different at all. So that's all. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tamanna. And Andrew said, and Andrew and Jennifer Snow Wolf say there have been women whose voices were heard but were out and out warmongers. Indira Gandhi presided over India gaining nuclear arms. Golda Meir presided over the West Bank Gaza occupation. And Madeleine Albright was one of the US's most warmongering Secretary of State. Shiva, did you have another question?
Yeah, so if for example, this warmongering nature infects even women who come into those positions of power, does it have something more to do with power than it does to have something to do with gender?
I'm sure you're correct. It's about power. It's not about gender at all. It's not about gender. It's absolutely something which is about power. People who are power hungry, and they want to take care of the fact that they take advantage of this particular aspect of this aspect. So I guess power hungry and warmongering women are not less in our world right now. So right now in EU Parliament, for example, you have the president who is a woman. Why can't they have a better voice? So I guess it's not just because they are women that they should be peace loving. Women can be definitely more aggressive than men also. Some men can be less aggressive than women. So I guess there's no essentially written fact that women have to be mild and meek. It's not always essential. A man can equally be sensible and understand the whole issue of woman's cause, etc. So I guess that's all. Shivu.
I agree, Tamanna. I think it's more about the virtue in our
Yeah.
leadership than what gender they are. Shiva, did you have any other questions? I don't see anything else in the chat. Please, if anyone has a question that you want answered, please put it in the chat and I'll be happy to read it for Tamanna.
Yeah, Tamanna. I have one more question. I'm hoping just one more, but I do have one more question. So, if these qualities and virtues are virtues that we're looking for in every human being, why don't they just be human virtues instead of just being feminist virtues? Why call it feminist virtues when they are required of everybody?
Yeah, I guess because it started from feminism.
Okay.
The neutral, the gender friendly thing, obviously it's required by every human being, and but because it was started by feminists, so that's why the word feminism has been used, because women were the one who invented it. Obviously we had, for example, in India we had Vidya Sagar, we had Raja Ram Mohan Roy, people like the ones who initiated women's empowerment in India, for example. Similarly in other countries, people, there were men who started the whole issue, but feminism was used because it was specifically for women's issues, such as single women, and the voting issue, etc. So I guess that is why it's used, the word is used, feminism. But the fact is that this feminist principle needs to be applied in all the world's theories. So I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tamanna. Spirit Man asks, does Tamanna support a global matriarchy, or does she think any sensuous symbol will lead to oppression, not based on a more universal reason? If not, if not all women are fit to lead nations or large groups of people, what criterion do we use to distinguish these women from other women in a matriarchy? And how does that differ from rational criterion outside a matriarchy or a sensuous mode of leadership?
No, I'm not wanting to have a matriarchy, a global matriarchy. What I'm trying to say is that a world where women have a say is there. There is no issue of patriarchy or matriarchy. Matriarchy is not the opposite of patriarchy. First of all, we need to understand that. And what we need to really understand is that with women, for example, we need to have a system where women get equal chances at the top level, and they have to have the chances to progress in life. And even if they have children, they have to have care centers, for example. I'm not too sure about America, but as far as Indian society is concerned, we hardly have much chances because women leave their jobs and sit at home. So I'm not talking about global matriarchy. I'm not supporter of any patriarchy or matriarchy. It should be a simple system where people are able to develop their qualities, their passions, their interests, their representative capacity, etc. But no global matriarchy, please.
Thank you very much, Tamanna. Shibu, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I do. Did you do any research into why we have a patriarchy right now?
I guess, yeah, patriarchy, because it started at the time of, for example, what do you say that? It is during the time when, forest, people were in the villages and forests, for example, and men had to go out for work while women were sitting at home taking care of children. So before that, it wasn't so. But the minute these kind of property came in and everything came in, that, when men started having property issues, etc. So then they started going out while women were taking care of children back home. So I guess patriarchy started from then. And, the fact that women were not expected to be extremely educated. For example, Plato, Aristotle, they have a different vision of women, for example. And the philosopher king is generally to be a man. It can be a woman, but most of the time it was a man. So yeah, so I guess somewhere priests, for example, were men. Women were not given the chances to be priests, for example. So, these are the whole issues that, and it was only slowly after Enlightenment and Reformation, etc., that the concept of equality came into being. So, slowly and gradually that got incorporated, and feminists came into picture slowly and gradually in the 18th, 19th century. And so then they spoke about the fact that, because women voting rights were first given to white men. In fact, the worst thing is that, women were given rights even later than black men. So women were considered even less superior than a black man. Imagine, that's a whole picture. So, so slowly and gradually, then women till the 1960s were not even called philosophers. So Simone Beauvoir, for example, she did not call herself a philosopher. So it's slowly and gradually that these issues came up, and post-colonialism as a picture came in, post-modernism, deconstruction. Deconstruction, Derrida's concept, where he spoke about how issues need to be deconstructed, and rereading of a text, for example, reading between the lines of what a particular concept is. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Andrew writes in the chat, in societies where the least powerful demographic has relatively more power, I think peace has a better chance.
Yes, I completely agree.
I also agree with that. Power is best wielded from a subservient position. Shibu, you had another question?
Yeah, so do you in your research, have you do you know of any matriarchal societies in
Yes.
history? I know a few, but what about you? What is matriarchal societies do you know of?
I guess in India, if we were to see, for example, Kerala was a matrilineal society. Then Northeast, for example, we have lots and lots of tribal tribal societies which are like matriarchal in nature. You know, where you have the youngest daughter staying with the parents and the guy coming to stay with the girl to the father's place, of mother's father's place. So I guess yes. I mean, even now we have matriarchal societies in the world right now. So yeah, at
Now,
least I know about, yeah.
these
I
matriarchal
mean,
societies, how do they function? Because I know in Kerala they function very well.
yeah.
They tend to be peaceful, but is that a general rule?
No, I'm that's what I'm trying to say, that you know they have their particular notion is that, you know, women are the man is going to come to the youngest daughter's house and stay, and property is going to be given to the woman, not
Yeah.
the man. So, you know, the dowry issue is like totally out of question in these societies. So, yeah. So, I guess we need to learn from Northeast societies very much in India. You know, a lot of research needs to get into Northeast societies. They're amazing.
Thank you very much, Tamanna, and Andrew has contributed another note. I think the main relevance of feminism is that when being female implies being voiceless and powerless, there is more warmongering. And then he goes on to say, war is a good war is a good pretext for declaring a state of emergency and asserting emergency powers. Yeah, that's true. Shibu, did you have another question, or Tamanna, did you
I'm
want to
good.
comment on that?
I guess, yeah, obviously women should not be, the whole purpose of the current situation is that women need not be voiceless, and voice has to be heard at the topmost level. And this is what doesn't happen because of vulnerability of women in certain situations. You know, like things like rapes, the basic issue of sexual harassment, etc. You know, they stop women from progressing. So I guess till the time these things have to be in a civilized society, you know, we are growing up, you know, and if these things are not taken care of at workplace and at domestic violence at home, women have no chances to progress. So I guess till the time we do not have these issues resolved, getting women to the forefront is a difficult task.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been almost an hour now. Would you like to have any closing comments, Tamanna?
Yes, I just wish that, you know, we have more foreign policy experts as women in the world, and you know, we have a lot of interaction between different countries, and you know, like be it your enemy country or be it your friendly country, we need to get the best out of all these countries, and wars, etc., should be a big no-no, and somehow these things should be resolved, taking women's you know, like the women have a certain intrinsic value, not all, but yeah, definitely many who want no war as a solution to world's problems. So till the time that doesn't happen, I guess we need to understand that, you know, women have the right to answer back any issue. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tamanna.